Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Welcome back to Purchasing Truth. I'm Tom Hazard with your host, Bill Stierle. And Bill, we often talk about many different ways truth gets purchased, and that continues to divide us as a country. And I don't think we talk enough about how we're going to have some restoration.
Yes.
And so I thought it'd be good to take another swing at that today, given especially recent events.
Yeah, we're in a cycle now that we've got to really start taking some actions towards restoration. And the candidate that moves to the front of the Democratic field, because the Republican field, Donald Trump and regrettably the Republicans, are not pursuing restoration. There's no win in it for them other than helping the nation out. There's no win in it for their party if they start down the path of restoration, but they need that desperately, but actually they're not able to do that because they've painted themselves in a corner. Their off ramp is similar to what I'm going to recommend for the Democrats. Regrettably, they don't have a very strong narrative to know how to get out of this thing, because they're trapped in their own cycle of things. So let's talk about what our country needs for restoration. How do we get there? What is the path or the journey that will take us there? And what candidates can say or do to not only create a differentiating message, but also create a message of what the country is to do to re-mend or re-heal itself. Because when you get a split identity of Republicans and Democrats, and then a third entity, an identity of independents that think and speak a certain way, they think that this way of thinking is going to work best, right? So we need to clean up the mess. We got to start down what the mess is, So the current mess we're in is Joe Biden's reported but not true scandal, because of it's already been researched that the problem shows up. It's really Russia doing the hacking, not the Ukrainians. It's not coming from that place. So we've got to clean up the mess, and the way to clean up the mess has got to be that we need to talk about what integrity of a process looks like, instead of the more dopamine boosting, there's a danger over here. The danger is them, not us. They're the corrupt one. And today marks the ending of the Hillary email server investigation. Yesterday.
Yeah. So from when we recorded this, it just came out that, the entire exhaustive investigation
4
is
years
complete, and that they found no intentional wrongdoing. And this is potentially gonna, it ends the investigation. I don't know if it puts the whole thing to rest, because there are those that, despite the investigation,
there's no healing.
There's no healing. Right.
Yeah, there's no healing now. There's no healing for somebody at the Republican convention somebody at a rally yelling, "Lock her up," not believing that what they've been yelling for 4 years is not true. They can't believe that because their brain has so much investment in the other side is evil. It's like holding in years past, and gosh, man, I might date myself, Dukakis and Bush number
Yeah.
one.
Uh-huh.
There was this ad campaign about Willie Horton getting released from prison and doing a crime while Dukakis was the
Governor
governor.
of Massachusetts, right. Right.
Or, and it wasn't even Dukakis's policy. It was the previous governor's policy that this furlough program took place, that this guy got let out of jail and did something bad. And all of a sudden it was Willie Horton and Dukakis were right next to each other. So
Right.
very, very problematic. And it's doing the same thing. Hillary and her emails are forever wired together. Joe Biden and his son in Ukraine is being wired together.
It really is.
Neurologically.
It really is. And there, and again, there is no evidence to this. It's been looked into and there's no evidence of wrongdoing, but in the eyes of half the country or close to it, the Republicans keep saying, well, but something's not right about Joe Biden and his son and, not only Ukraine, but then they start tapping the brain to say, oh, and China too. And somebody's got to look into this, that it's almost they're raising it to the level of a crime, that it isn't being investigated the way that Hillary's emails were. And this is already having a major negative impact on the electorate's impression of Joe Biden.
It is. It's affecting their impression of Joe Biden. It's affecting their impression of him. They create it. The process of doing this reward, anticipation, uncertainty, this dopamine boosting narrative is not about finding truth. It's about creating doubt and skepticism inside the listener, inside the candidate. And when I see his poster, I'm going like, yeah, but what about Ukraine? Yeah, but why didn't you tell your son not to take the money and not go there? What kind of leader are you that would let your son do that? It's like, are you realizing that the fox is stealing chickens out of the chicken hen right now? The eggs of American integrity, the golden eggs of American integrity and respect, but you're not going to point at that because he's your guy, or he makes you feel better, or listening to what they're talking about on their side makes you feel better because they're using a technique on you about here's a reward, here's some anticipation. What happens if he does find out? That means he would be the crook. That means the whole system is crook. What are we going to do? Well, I'm not sure, but if you reelect me, I can make a difference. Because that's why it's been so hard these last 4 years, is they've been obstructing me. It's like, you're doing crimes, buddy. See, so again, we notice how our brain is easily drifted back into the problem and not focusing on the solution. Just notice that the inflammation shows up in our brain.
Right. And the reality is, the president could easily say the same kind of thing happened to him when, everybody's trying to find collusion. And, we've got to investigate it. There must be collusion there. Well, guess what? Okay, there was no evidence found of the current administration colluding with the Russians to interfere in the election. But that was not the point of the investigation. The point of the investigation was to see if the Russians, in fact, did meddle in our elections, which they did. But that's not what anybody talks about the results.
Yeah, and Mueller said they're doing it right now. They're doing it again. And that was several months ago that he said that. And here it is now, several months later, and Facebook just pulled down 40 coordinated accounts that were spreading negative messages on both sides of Joe Biden, that he's not progressive enough, and he is, this criminal guy from Ukraine. He, has worn a Ukrainian hat. I just made something up, but that's all it takes.
Right. But so that's the point, is they're still doing it, still trying to divide us further, because that division is what Russia's going after. It ends up, they end up reaching their goal of sowing, discontent, and that's, to put it too mildly, just to stir up all sorts of trouble in the US that is going to keep people from actually seeing truth and making a good decision with their vote.
So you use the word discontent, right?
Yeah, I didn't feel it was strong enough, but I did use that word.
Correct. So discontent, it's because that's a feeling. I'm not, it's actually, the content is a feeling. Discontent is a vibration that is it's just a little unsettling. So I'm a little unsettled about Joe Biden because for the last 3 months, all I've heard is about his Hunter.
Right.
Now, I know he has a son named Hunter. I know his son Bo died. I know his wife died, in a car wreck and stuff.
Yeah.
Discontent. But discontent is a gateway to doubt, which is a gateway to skepticism. Now, if we're doing scary honesty about this thing, and we're really talking about how language is used to hijack truth, to purchase truth, the challenge then becomes, how do you get doubt and skepticism out of your body, right?
Right.
How do you get that out? Because that's the healing and the restoration part of it. And a Truth and Reconciliation Commission is something to put into place, to host, to foster. We need truth and reconciliation to mend the nation. Let's facilitate that. The candidate that says, if I'm elected, the first thing I would do is host and promote a truth and reconciliation for our nation. Because this last 4 years, and the last 4 years, the last year campaign and this presidency, we need truth and reconciliation to heal our nation. Because what we need and what is essential from this moment on is what the United States stands for. And we're going to refortify ourselves. So notice I introduced a concept here called the Truth and Reconciliation. But it's, hey, listen, if South Africa could do this with apartheid, we could clearly do this as a nation. We can really, truly. And I wouldn't mind leading it. I'm sure there's a whole team of people that would get on board about how to lead this truth and reconciliation. What does it take to have people really vent how they were taken by what took place inside them, the truth and reconciliation, and how to do that best.
Yeah, no, that is very much needed. And, the only candidate that I see speaking anything in the neighborhood of this is Pete Buttigieg. And he actually, at the time of recording this, he's rising in the polls. He's now number 3 in Iowa and in double digits in I think 13% compared to like 17 or 18. And, with who's ahead of him is Elizabeth Warren, and I forget who the third person is who's up there with him. Is it?
Oh, I think Joe is
Is it
there
Joe or
too,
is
or
it
Bernie.
Bernie? I think it's
Yeah,
Bernie. I don't
yeah,
know,
in
but because
Iowa.
Joe Biden's been slipping because of all of this,
Hmm.
all of this, uh, amplification or proportionalization of, his son's involvement on the board of this company in Ukraine. And of course, the Republicans all saying, oh, but what about this and what about that? And we need to investigate it. So and Biden's also not been helping himself with how he talks about all this stuff at times. So anyway, it's
Yeah.
most recently there was an interview with Pete Buttigieg on Meet the Press where he actually talked about, for the first time, something you and I have been saying on this podcast from the beginning about making sure no one meddles in our elections in the future. Now, he hasn't been screaming it at every rally and wearing it like a badge of honor that I am going to go and stop the Russians from doing this. I think if he does that, it'll help him tremendously. But he is talking about and I think it's because he believes it to his core that there is a restoration that needs to take place. He's not using that word yet, but and that's something that I think if Elizabeth Warren who is now the front runner, were to speak like that, she would actually run away as the front runner, but she's still stuck on the I have a plan, here's my plan, here's how I'm going to pay for Medicare for
Right.
all, because she's being
Right.
attacked from all sides with you can't pay for it, and she's trying to defend that.
Yeah. Yeah. The truth never gets won by explanation. You can't win truth by explanation, and you can't win truth by problem solving. You can't win truth by giving advice. You cannot win truth by, but you just can't. There's
Yeah.
no way to do it because the person is already entrenched and they've already invested their choice, their decision has been bought already by the partial truth the other person has sold to them. The partial truth is the thing that has caused that impact to take place. And and Joe Biden is a nice person, a seasoned politician, a statesman, somebody that sits there and knows how to listen to somebody that is, has the label of racist, that has the label of somebody that doesn't agree with him. But he knows how to sit there and listen. His tools are not as strong as the ones that we're proposing. It doesn't mean that he hasn't had a great career, right?
Sure.
It's like,
sure.
right. It's like, he's got there from here. Clearly, if there is an adaptation of a new set of tools, an adaptation of the integrated needs-based narrative or value-based narrative that's needed to restore, and how to get there from here. Elizabeth Warren, same thing. Nice person, high integrity, just doesn't know how to deliver it to the common person.
No question. I mean, I think you've made a really good point here, Bill, is that certainly Joe Biden has the resume and the history, and Elizabeth Warren does also to a large degree. I mean, they're not that different in age and experience, and they each have a very clear history of commitment to the nation and to help people. But what would really seal the deal for either one of them is if they actually then were, I'm going to sort of in air quotes here on the video,
Yep.
be the wise parent or adult in the room and not just, ride on that record.
Right.
And say, now, yeah, I've got the record and experience, so you can all feel safe. Your need for safety is met. Your need for certainty is met, that I am
Right.
going to deliver on what I promised, or certainly do my level best to deliver on that. But now what we need as a nation is to heal and bring us together and start to talk about the reconciliation piece. I mean, if Elizabeth Warren was a part of a completely new government office or agency, the Consumer Protection Bureau, she knows how to start a new one, and it could be like you say, a commission on truth and reconciliation in America. She would then own it and run away with this Democratic nomination if she showed that kind of feeling and heart, which I think is where she is vulnerable, as I don't think she's as empathetic, or at least doesn't appear to be.
She doesn't appear to be.
Yeah.
She appears to be friendly, but she
Yeah.
doesn't appear to be empathetic, because empathy, in the formula for empathy that I use and I promote, and all the people that have been trained by me and trained in this technique, is the ability to be strong at the same time as doing empathy, and not do the lesser version of sympathy, but the really ability to connect with where somebody is and be there with them, with their belief, as their belief has to fall off. The belief has to fall off at some time. So, I mean, it's really hard when somebody buys a belief. It's very, very difficult for them to let it go. And when if a person dispels the belief with facts and truth without empathy, it still doesn't work. I'm going to go back to a very poignant moment in the field of time. It is John McCain running for president.
Yes.
He's on the stage, I don't know, Phoenix somewhere. This woman comes on stage and says, Barack Obama is a Muslim, and blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden she goes into this belief, and his truth has got to deal with that. His integrity has got to deal with it.
And I think that's worth noting. That's worth noting right there, because Donald Trump in that situation wouldn't have done that. He would have sort of nodded and let her belief fester and said, and pivoted away from that, but let it hang out there, or
leave it alone,
or just step into it and amplify it. And John McCain, I agree with you, to his credit. And I just want to highlight this because honestly, I think it's pretty clear that, people listening to these episodes know that we're not the most conservative people in the world, right? But I could have voted for John McCain, especially way back in 2000 when he was running against George W. Bush and was the maverick, the more independent. Right. But John McCain had integrity, and he was not going to let that, I call it, what would we call it? A lie,
voter.
Lie strong.
Yeah, the liar. That's right. Yeah.
Let that myth be perpetuated that Barack Obama was a Muslim.
That's right.
So
that's
I'm
right.
sorry to interrupt you there, but I think that's worth noting, because John McCain, certainly patriot, great American, man of honor, and his integrity wouldn't let that go.
Now watch this. It cost him votes by doing it that way.
It probably cost him the election in many ways.
Good. Now let me show you what he could have done.
All right.
This is what he could have done. So, ma'am, you would like me to hear that you have a thought or a belief that Barack Obama is a Muslim. Am I hearing that thought correctly? She'd say yes.
She would absolutely say yes to that.
Yeah. Well, I'm guessing that you really have a conviction about, not voting for somebody that is a different religion than yours. Is that correct? Yes. Notice I'm in two sentences of agreement already.
Right.
Third sentence. It's one of the wonderful things as Americans that we can have different faiths and still be able to vote here, where other countries don't get that opportunity. And even though that you are feeling, doubtful and skeptical about Barack Obama's religion, and the truth is that he is a Christian. He goes to Christian churches. But as Americans and as religious people, we get to have whatever religion we like here. And the issue here, if you'd like to vote for me, is the thing I stand for is this. He stands for something different. Now he got to that too early. He goes,
Yeah.
but
He
but
just says, I just happen to disagree with him.
I
No, ma'am.
just happened to.
She said, no, ma'am, no, ma'am. He's
No,
not a
man,
Muslim.
no,
He's a
man,
good
no, man,
man,
no,
a good
man.
man, but I happen to
Yeah.
disagree with him.
Yeah.
And you're right. It got there too quickly.
Too quick.
And the way you just did that was masterful. And this is the skill that, I mean, any candidate who would learn this skill and adopt it would rule the U.S. in a hurry and win public, how do you say,
enrollment.
Enrollment. Big time. Yeah.
Enrollment. They're enrolling. You got to re-enroll people into America. It's like the weirdest time ever. It's like we ever thought we had to re-enroll ourselves into integrity. We have to re-enroll ourselves into mutual respect. We have to make America's handshake great again. Shall somebody steal that, please? Let's do that.
Wow.
Let's go and put that. Make America's. Let's go ahead. Let's go make some T-shirts and put them up, Tom. Make America's handshake
great again. I love that. It's you remember Hands Across America way back when? Was that in the late 80s? I don't remember, early 90s. But
it was the big unifier.
Yeah, I mean, huge. Something
and
like
to
this.
Think that they almost got it done, and to think, if I don't want to feel so pissed at the media for this, to think all the media cared about was a few miles out in the middle of desert that they didn't have enough people at, and that's what they covered, that they weren't able to get it done because there was it's like, do you know what just happened there about unity across America, folks?
Yeah, I know.
Now all of a sudden I'm mad. I'm mad about what they covered.
Well, but here's the thing. This is a great point. And I think this skill that you just shined a light on here for us of showing empathy, asking a couple of questions, and getting a couple of levels of agreement with the person that is has this strong belief is so critical. And I can see the future. Where are we now? As we're recording this, we're in October of 2019, and I'm gonna date this on purpose. I don't usually do that in episodes, but so we're a year out from really the final stretch to the election, and there are going to be probably at least 3 presidential debates, one of which will be, if not more than one, will be in October of 2020, a year from now. And I can see that as long as Donald Trump doesn't get removed from office, right, which is not a certainty by any means, but as long as he's still there,
right? Yeah.
I can see the Democratic candidate, if they actually develop some skill and get some training in this, in a debate where, of course, in a presidential debate, each candidate is supposed to be able to make statements or answer questions and be uninterrupted by the other candidate. However, we've already seen with Trump debating Hillary Clinton, he can't do that. When Hillary would say something about Trump, that he is this or he is that, or he won't do this, Trump always chimes in and says, nope, not here. No, that's not me. Oh, of course, whatever. He just cannot stop himself and play by the rules of one person talking at a time. So when the Democratic candidate were to ask a question saying, I'm guessing the president is feeling doubt and skepticism over this, is that right? Trump would not be able to help himself but agree and say yes. He would do it.
So
Yeah.
And what happens is what he would not know is the doubt and skepticism is now the coat that he just put on. So Mr. President, it seems like President Trump is feeling doubtful and skeptical about Joe Biden's doing in Ukraine. Yes. I just gave oxygen for a moment.
Right.
Oxygen for a moment to the conspiracy. And it sounds like that he, just chose because he had the thought as the president that he could do what he would like. he chose to have Rudy Giuliani be a part of his press secretary as a international. Yes.
Oh, you mean like as a negotiator,
Yeah,
investigator,
negotiator.
part of
Yeah,
the State
it's
Department,
a
whatever.
part
Yeah.
of the State Department without being appointed, because he could take advice from anybody he wants. Yes. So it sounds like that he would choose to, it sounds like he was so doubtful and skeptical about the career professionals that have been there for years that they had any skill or ability to be there. Is that right?
Ouch.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow. In their testimony, they said this, and this. He's already on the plank. He doesn't see himself, and there's no walking back from his own yeses when done with empathy. But there's always a walk back when you're doing it from explanation. When you explain something, you could always walk it back and re-explain. I'm re-explaining. That's what they're doing. Mulvaney just did it the other day. He's trying to re-explain. Well, there's three things: this, and this. The third one was dangerous. So the next time he was on the next show on the next day, there are two things: this and this. And the newscasters are going like, how do they not know that they're being recorded? And the answer is, and this is what all the news people are making the mistake of, is it's a reinforcing narrative of confidence. It's not it's not trying to clean up truth. They're not trying to be truthful.
They're just trying to amplify.
confidence.
Yeah, they're trying to amplify the things that are, in alignment with the right side of the issue, and make those, inflate those in proportion, and let the other one sort of fall to the side. That's what they're trying to do. And I mean, yeah, it is kind of hilarious. I think it's easier though when it was Mick Mulvaney speaking at the podium. It's easier for the president to then disassociate himself from that and say, oh, well, Mick Mulvaney had it wrong. It's a little different if you're the president saying it yourself. Then it becomes harder to walk back. And the Inigo Montoya defense doesn't work, right? The one that I don't think that means what you think it means.
I don't think what you think it means. Yeah,
sorry, dating myself with the Princess Bride reference, but seriously.
One of the physiological hooks that have happened in the inside the Republican voter, the Trump voter, Republican's a little bit too broad, but it's the Trump voter, is that because a person is confident, they must have integrity and they must have respect. Those three things do not go together. Confidence, just because somebody's confident, doesn't mean they have integrity, doesn't mean they have respect. Now, there are a lot of parents, fathers and mothers, that show a confidence around respect. You are to give your parents respect because we are your parents, we are your elders. This is something that is also translated and has been hijacked. You keep using hijack, but it's really been purchased. It's a paid, I pay the repetition, and then watch the media just take it on. So if I am the father that gets respect without being questioned, and I'm the president because I got here, because I get respect without being questioned, it's just going into a very, very old, deep pathology that our country is struggling with, let alone the old patriarch that is still in place that the women are coming for finally, and the punitive God, regrettably, is in the same father. You give respect to God even though that, hey, there's this really bad thing that happened. You don't get to question his motives about why these people drowned in a hurricane. It's like, so there is some cognitive disconnect that is also being purchased too. And
So
it's
would
like,
you say, Bill, that's the difference between respect demanded and respect earned? Is there something
correct.
different there? Yeah.
Yeah. See, it's not earned, it's demanded. And it's the person with the loudest voice gets the most respect. It's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. You just happen to have the loudest voice.
You
You
get
don't get the,
attention. You get
yeah,
maybe
you get to
ratings.
be heard. You
Yeah.
get to be a great, carnival barker. You get to do that. Come in and see this show. Look inside this tent. You will not believe what's inside this tent. Imagine what it would be like you sitting inside this tent and seeing this thing that no one else has seen before. All of that stuff is a Trump narrative. Why? Because he's a salesperson and a marketer. He doesn't see that he's doing anything wrong, because it's always what he's done to sell and market his property.
Well, it's all about him. It's all about me if you're him, not
Right.
about the people or America. He is trying to have the people in America believe that he's meeting their needs, when in reality, everything he's doing is just to meet his own needs of self-worth
Yeah.
and respect. And
See, you could make a false claim about a product if you're in a marketing things. You make a false claim about it, and if nobody calls you on it, you get a pass. Now, if the false claim causes harm or damage, then there could be a class action suit that this thing caused harm and damage, permanent harm and damage, and you got to get a payout for that. You got to get a payout for that. There's some money there,
right.
because they did cause harm and they did promise, and they did not put it on the box in the finest small print ever, that this thing could cause XYZ problem to happen. So,
Wow.
and you get a pass on it. The only problem right now is that same technique is in the president's office, that he's getting a pass on over promotion of a product, of a belief, of a decision-making process that is not in integrity or in alignment with the law. It just isn't. So there's some problems that we're dealing with right now that we need to restore.
And so is the key to that restoration really hidden within the examples and the techniques we've talked about today? Is it really, it is back to empathy and compassion, but a leader needs to do it on a large scale, sort of on a national scale, like you say, maybe to create a commission on truth and restoration in America. But it seems to be rooted in empathy, does it not?
It is rooted in empathy, and skilled empathy, not just sympathy and just saying there, you guys lost, too bad, and glad we could talk this thing out. No, it's, listen, you've been sold a truth that we're not going to beat you up for. You voted for Trump last time, but and it caused us all a lot of trouble, and it divided us as American, but we're not going to hold that against you. You were hijacked by the best of them, and we're good. We're good, because we've all bought things that we didn't want and wanted to return but couldn't.
Wow. Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
How that would paint this administration as, a Furby or something. I mean, really a product that people bought. Now, maybe Furby is a little too
You know
cheap,
what?
but
If any of the politicians right now are listening to this episode, which is I would recommend highly, because I'll just keep giving diamonds out every single sentence. So like Kamala Harris could say this. It's like, the way we need to start thinking about Trump is the way he plays golf. Now, all of a sudden, it's dangling. Now, you know how in golf There's a thing called a mulligan.
Yes.
Yeah, Trump's our mulligan. And just let that run in the media.
Wow. And now everybody who has their self-worth attached to that they voted for Trump.
It's a mulligan. You get another choice. Vote something different this time.
It's an off-ramp, right?
It's an off-ramp. It's an off-ramp. The voter needs an off-ramp right now. The voter needs an off-ramp. Their self-worth, their respect, their integrity. They get to say, hey, my vote was a mulligan. Everybody look like, yeah, come back to Thanksgiving dinner. Why? Because it was a mulligan. You made a mistake. We all kind of suffered for it. We're going to jab you for it a little bit. But quite frankly, it was a mulligan. We're good. We're good. You're our family. Come back.
Wow.
All right, I'll keep going.
Yo, you could keep. There's got to be a way to create a new hat that's the new MAGA hat where somehow there's a mulligan in there.
There's a mulligan. See, we're you know what we need to do. That's a good, Tom. There's a price thing here. There's a windfall here. There's the mulligan hats now. The red mulligan. Mulligan vote, I think.
Oh my gosh. And then
hat.
What we need to do is turn, just like you do at the baseball stadium, turn it into a rally cap where it's like, take a MAGA hat, turn it inside out and make it like a mulligan hat, or that, we're going to rally and get out of this mulligan we've been in. I don't know. Maybe we're beating the mulligan thing too much, but I like the idea though of turning that.
Keep messages of integrity and respect so that there's a confidence. The confidence, there's one thing that we've got to really learn from President Trump. The main thing we need to learn is that he is confident.
No question.
Not particularly attached to any particular dogma or value other than himself and his properties and the finance and the money and his rich and his identity of being rich and those kinds of things. And you know what? People give rich people a push on respect. Wow, you are rich. Why are you respecting that? They might not have earned a penny of it or aren't really doing anything of value with it. So it's really important to separate confidence from integrity and respect,
I think a lot of people in America don't really understand that, and because most people in America, let's face it, are not rich, right? And in the middle and lower classes, there's, the majority of America is not rich, and they view sort of inherently as the wealth as being a value in itself, and that, well, he must have done something right, or he must be smart. He's gotten rich. So they give him a pass on many, many qualities that they otherwise might be looking for in a candidate who was not rich.
They do. So let's finish off on this thing called perspective regarding respect. All right, I've got my hands here close together. And there's something that Americans need that's really vital to us for our existence. It's transportation. We really do. We really need transportation.
Okay. And
currently in the environment, there is an entire range, and I'm holding up my hands with a range of ways you can get your need for transportation met. Do you see this range of things?
I do, yeah.
Huge range.
Sure.
Okay. We'd all agree that the one at the bottom of this is walking.
Sure.
That is one way to meet the need for transportation. Mm-hmm. Then right above that, although bikers would disagree with me, might be bikers because you're still under your own power. Yeah. Then buses is right next to that. Then trains might be next to that. Then as soon as you get past this train piece, now all of a sudden you got to walk into personalized autos. And there is a whole range of transportation.
Sure.
But guess what, Tom? You and I jump into a new Mercedes and drive that around, somehow respect gets purchased over here. You're not getting respect necessarily by riding a bike or walking or taking a bus or doing a train.
Right.
But if you're in a Mercedes, a Lexus, a Lamborghini, just name a high-end car, a Tesla, all of a sudden there is a push of respect in your direction saying, you have accomplished something in capitalism. You have managed money in such a way and do it. So there's a way to heal, because when something is sold as a high-end vehicle, but really is at best a low-end car, that is the problem that the Republican voter is going to face. They purchased this person that said they were luxury. They said they were Trump said he was intelligent, and he still does. And he says that he's the best and he could solve it. I did that. I got rid of ISIS. It's like I rounded them up. It's like you didn't do anything. Your team gives it. And how are you claiming this? Because he actually said that yesterday. I did this. You are not the luxury car, buddy, but you better honor the people that made the car.
Right.
You might be okay that you purchased the car and that you happen to be driving in it, and that under your leadership something like this took place, that you funded XYZ strategy to, get it done. Now, if he would have said it that way, he would have gained votes. All Trump would have had to say is the following sentence: I'm really delighted that the funding for the military that we approved at the start of my administration contributed greatly to putting ISIS in this place. Now it's time for our troops to come home.
Completely different perspective.
No, but regrettably, his own respect, his own identity, regrettably, his self-worth is so wrapped up in the I did.
The me. Right.
That he just took advantage of having both houses that would vote for, may I say, extraordinary bloated military surge in spending that allowed that he could have leveraged that spending piece into this thing. And if any of his people are listening right now, they could literally steal it. And guess what? The votes would move in their direction. That's why this is not really so much, even though we're being smarty pants right now, but this is not a partisan piece. This is what's good for America. And of course, if anybody with integrity and would say, what is good for America? Well, we're not giving him this talking point, because it is a good talking point, but it's not helpful.
Right. Yeah. That would continue to purchase truth away from, I think, restoration, although it would certainly give respect to all the others that really contributed to that result.
That's one of their off ramps.
Right.
That could be one of the Republicans' off ramps. Yeah. Well, Trump was this kind of character, and we're really glad we voted for it. But you know what we did do? We voted to get this, and now we've got to go back and fix what the president has done now that we've impeached him. And the Republicans can have a clean off ramp, very clean off ramp there.
If they have the desire to look within themselves and learn and improve with their communication and their messaging and their language skills, which is, I think, a big if. But anyway.
I'll keep my phone by the bed, but I'm not sure if it'll ring.
Well, I hope eventually.
I feel doubtful and skeptical that the need for integrity is high on their list right now, because they're in defensive mode and they don't know how to restore integrity or respect. They don't, and so what they're doing is they're doubling down in the wrong direction, away from integrity and respect. And the Democratic candidate that starts calling them out on it might sound like this: you know what? I don't respect. I've lost respect. I feel very doubtful and skeptical about extending respect to Lindsey Graham. Notice what I just did. I put the two feeling words, doubt and skepticism, next to the word respect, because in the past, he was confident during the Clinton impeachment about what integrity looked like. But I feel doubtful and skepticism that he's lost, that I'm going to assign integrity to the things that he says and does. Now, all of a sudden, he's got to like take a shower to try to get rid of the doubt and skepticism that's on it, because now he is lingering with the emotional projection of another person. Now, Trump does this in a different way, but that's for our next episode.
Yeah. All right. Well, that sounds great, Bill. I appreciate that. It's interesting. I mean, I agree with you. We need restoration in America. We need it very badly. And it just so happens the way the pendulum has swung so far to the right in order to, and dividing us, we have to somehow bring it back into the middle or further to the left, you might say, from where it is. And it wouldn't matter who's in office right now. Getting to this point, the restoration is about, healing and compassion and empathy.
Yeah.
And it just so happens the parties are where they are. And to do that probably means a shift of the party in power.
That's right.
Because the one that's there can't bring that reconciliation.
That's correct. I think it's going to be interesting to see, where we could go next with this, because it's very, very, very volatile right now, and we've got so many wounds. There's a little bit of a triage narrative that's going on, and so you and I can talk about how to deal with this level of turbulence, and to do the triage narrative that's needed by, maybe that's what we go after, is
I like that.
Purchasing truth in a crisis triage environment. Maybe we go after that.
I like that. Okay, Bill. Sounds good.
All right. More to come.
Thanks. Until next time.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.